Welcome to Kreston Menon Perspective, where we discuss topics that matters to businesses. I'm your host, Shibu Abraham. It's quite, away from the topic which we're discussing, but even the end users, the employees, the people who use AI, people have a tendency. Now we see long emails coming out from people who hardly used to talk much.
Yes.
Thanks to ChatGPT. So I remember a session which our cybersecurity team, took for our employees on what to do and what not to do, or how to approach ChatGPT or any of this generative AI tools. Do you have a quick word of advice to the viewers on how to use AI tools?
So AI tools can be, mostly people use generative AI tools like ChatGPT, Claude, and my advice for people would be to use it appropriately, keeping in mind the data that we are uploading on the AI applications. It can be sensitive data. So we have to be aware that what we are feeding. So we have an example now with Gemini. If you see, it can also detect the finger prints.
Oh,
Yes. So we have to be careful with our privacy as well when we are uploading. And when we are also considering the client data as well. So there are different clients we work with. So we have to be very careful what data we are uploading. So there should be an acceptable use policy in place covering these areas on how to use the generative AI applications in an organization. At an organization level, they have to make employees aware and sign on the AI risks and generative AI risks. And AI governance part, I just wanted to cover that. AI governance has multiple aspects. From first of all, what I see, organizations don't know what are the AI applications they have in their organizations. So an inventory needs to be there, and like a whole aspect, inventory, AI model, AI infrastructure. So governance covers all aspects. So we have to be aware that the framework covers all aspects in an organization.
great.
There is also this part for AI where, because you are using the general users, so organizations can either have an enterprise version or people use their own private version, personal versions. I've seen in organizations, even when there is an enterprise version, people want to use their private version or subscriptions because they are comfortable with some other model, they're doing something. Or some organizations, like for example, the regulated sector like banking, they block certain AIs so that, you don't have sensitive data going out. However, all said and done, the amount of, we're moving towards an era where, let's say, when you look at agentic AI, we're going to also have AI within browsers. Okay. So it's going to be very hard to separate these from a enterprise which is adopting AI. Let's say you want to have an agentic AI or you want to enable AI on your application. One of the things that you have to make sure is your model is tested. So as part of our testing, we have this way of testing your AI model, understanding how it is processing the data, whether you are up for model evasion, there can be a prompt injection. So, there are a lot of ways to also make the model behave in a way it is not supposed to. So if it's an in-house application or if it is, let's say, a third-party application, I would highly recommend that we test it, because unless you test it, you cannot just take it just for the features that they tell you.
Yes.
So I think a lot more of educating or awareness should happen at the employee level also.
Yes.
And now progressive companies, organizations are including the AI usage policy, and in the induction process itself, they brief the employees on what they can do or what they cannot share on
Yes.
these AI platforms.
One important point to note is that if you look at the precedents, we had this issue where ADGM actually fined an organization for misuse of AI, which means the information which was generated by the organization in one of its assignments was false. It was incorrect. And they did incur a fine. And that's one of the precedent cases in UAE where you can be fined for, as an organization, you can be fined if what you are using AI for is not factual, representative, and true. So employees need to be educated from that perspective that, they will have to bear a kind of personal liability also on use of their AI, because if they don't validate and they're going to submit it as the organization's work, which we have seen in multiple large entities also, where they have been fined, they have outside UAE I'm talking about, they've been fined, the users have been fined, the organization has been fined. So unless users also understand that they have a liability in this use, it'll be difficult for organizations alone to manage the risk.
The other one, it is on the regulatory framework in UAE. We see there are multiple, jurisdictions, and maybe ADGM, DIFC, and all already had this data protection law and all in place. And now people are talking more about the new frameworks and how the Dubai or the UAE regulatory framework actually works with, for example, DESC ISR or the Dubai Cybersecurity Index, and the companies which are going for ISO 27001 and ISO 22301. So, and the requirements are quite demanding also. So how, as Kreston ME Consulting, as a consultant, how do you support the organizations in this process? People say it's easy to pass an exam or get a certification done. You can, do certain cosmetic work and get the certification. But how do you actually implement a successful program there, which actually runs and makes the organization more effective?
We have something, there are organizations which have their own unique approaches to this. Our approach to organizations is that, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Okay. So every organization has something that they're doing right. It may not be the most mature way of doing things, all right, but they would be having something that they're doing right. And they've already invested in people, in technology, in capability to have something in place. However, most organizations, they may have something like a chain of command, okay, where people know a set way of doing things, but it may not be a standardized process or an approved policy, right? Certifications of frameworks are just a standardized means of accrediting an organization that they adhere to a certain level of functioning or operations, right? It is more for assurance externally to partners, to other peer or the industry, also assurance internally to employees and internal stakeholders. But what we try to do is we try to unify these efforts. Okay. So we built something called a unified compliance framework so that they can address multiple requirements, whether it is sectoral requirements or, things at an emirate level or at a federal level. And they can do it with the least amount of effort, and they can optimally use their resources and money so that the compliance effort is not a burdensome, burdensome effort on their basis, but it becomes a natural part of their functioning, so that as part of their functioning, the evidence can be generated regularly. So it's not just certification for certification's sake or compliance for compliance sake, but for management to actually see that the control framework that they have invested in is functioning, maturing over time, and it is building that resilience they are looking for while bringing in the results.
Yes, and I agree. And it reduces the effort as well. So this unified compliance framework, it helps organizations to reduce the effort on manually collecting the evidence for, say, one standard and then another standard again. So it creates a loop, and the effort like multiplies. So in order to reduce the effort, this is UCF is one of the solutions, and I see where we are moving to the automation of this as well now.
Okay.
So what we do is we don't even ask organizations to invest in new technology. There we can use existing things like, let's say, simple PowerShell scripts. Like, for example, access review. Access review, we just write in our own PowerShell scripts. We give it to the organization. They can sanitize it. They can run it.
Okay.
So the idea is that, organizations, see, as advisors or consultants, one of the things that we try to do is we understand you're calling us in for the expertise which you don't have or may not have, okay, in-house. But when we leave, what we try to do is we try to enable the team in such a way that there is some capability enhancement on the, the client side. So we give away as much as possible so that that capability is there already in-house. So let's say we leave the client and go, they can still continue to do certain things by themselves, and they just need to maybe call us and ask for a validation from time to time. But that extension of capability enhancement is part of all our engagements.
So this effective implementation actually automatically takes all the requirements of different jurisdictions also, without consciously, you trying to be compliant, but this becomes part of your culture, part of your system and process.
So sometimes organizations think that just if I can invest in a GRC tool, it will help me. You see, again, you have to configure the GRC tool and things have to work. Ultimately, you need telemetry.
Yeah.
And that telemetry, it's like saying I have Excel and I have all the numbers, but then if I don't know how to interpret that numbers, what use is it? So similarly, just having telemetry and just having a GRC tool is not the solution, but to understand it, translate it in business terms, and then take a decision. That's what we want organizations to develop the capability.
I get it. We see a lot of investments happening within the organization to secure the systems, the network, everything. But now the businesses are operating on a wider scale. They have third-party vendors. They have a huge supply chain, which the organization actually doesn't have much control. So where do you see, or how do you advise organizations on to be, sure, to make sure that your supply chain or your extended network or the third parties are not, compromised and your data is not compromised?
So we start with gap assessment. So we understand the environment first and their pain points. So say, for example, what the organization is looking at is their third party vendors are not, they want to assess the third party vendors basically.
Okay.
So we will create a program for them, and then we will effective it for them, and this in turn increases the maturity as well of the organization. So first we understand the environment, the pain points, and then we move forward from there.
So for third party risk management, I think the most phenomenal story you can find is the AT&T compromise last year. We had this huge compromise and it happened back to back twice. All right. And it happened because the third party which was involved was Snowflake. Now Snowflake was handling their billing and subscription. And, in the end, it was AT&T who was fined and not Snowflake because, see, it was AT&T's job to purge old data from the third party customer. Okay, there is no surface which is completely secure, right? When third parties come, the problem is you are trying to manage risk on a surface which you do not manage, you do not control, okay? And then when you talk about third parties, the relationship is owned by procurement, by business units. So applying security governance on third parties is not exactly easy, right? So what we have done is with organizations we work with, we've kind of worked with the procurement itself where we can help procurement pre-screen the risk a vendor brings to the enterprise.
So that's not after the system is in place?
Not after, before.
Before.
All right. And we have kind of worked with procurement to screen and reduce the risk of the potential vendor. Once the vendor comes in, we have a risk-based tiering. So when we do our TPRM or third-party risk management, we use a tiered system to understand the relative exposure they bring to the organization. So in the case of anything going wrong, we understand what is a layered defense we need to put in place. It could be contractual. Okay, it need not be always technology. Sometimes it's contractual. Sometimes it is your process. Sometimes it is, yes, the technology in itself or the environment in which it is deployed and how it is deployed. So understanding risk takes multiple dimensions. You see, it's not just, okay, what is my third party risk, but also to understand what is the nature of risk it brings. To see it both quantitatively and qualitatively. And as you assess that risk, you make business decisions in terms of, is it really worth the risk? And if I'm going to protect against the risk, is it going to cost me much more?
Because nowadays everyone is going for automation and ERP tools, and also even we go with the features.
Yeah.
We go with the function. Oh, this works fine. Let's do that. But we don't know what's in the back end.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've seen many proposals being turned down by our cybersecurity team just because the third party didn't have the or couldn't, give a reasonable answer to how they manage the security part.
Yes.
So I think Kreston Menon Consulting can support a lot of our clients on onboarding this technology partners, because after bringing in these
Yes.
players, you don't have much control over that.
Yes.
See, one interesting part is because now the talk is much on e-invoicing.
Yeah.
And you're talking of ASP providers, and then you're talking of API integrations. Generally, people don't understand the risk even within that kind of ecosystem. But whenever you integrate, whenever there's an API integration to any part of your enterprise estate, there is obviously a risk. Okay, and how you manage that risk is up to you. So the more number of integrations you have in your environment, the greater the surface. You see?
Yes.
So it's not about having more tools, okay? It's about actually having lesser and having more native ecosystems rather than a very disparate or diverse ecosystem.
I get it. And I was just going through the different business models, different advisory firms adapt basically. And I've seen this catch point where, we work with a certain consulting company, and during that tenure, everything is fine. But once the contract period is over, we are back to square one again. Because there's no knowledge sharing or, giving the ownership to the organizations which we work. What is the model which Kreston Menon Consulting is working with your clients?
See, one thing which I've been in this industry for about 25 years plus. Okay. One thing which I do see, especially in this region, is we see a lot of in UAE, for example, we see a lot of local Emiratis who are coming up, who are very interested in the subject, very interested in knowing how things work, right? Generally, I see that the younger generation, you find they are more committed, more willing to learn. They are driven in that sense.
And I think your team also have UAE nationals who are in the pricing.
Yeah. So what we try to do, I always believe personally that, you should not develop a consultant dependency. The idea is that your work should be something that makes the client grow in capability. It should not be just a risk register, a policy document, or a VABT report. That's not the idea. The idea is to support them in helping them fix things so that once they fix it, they are able to maintain it. If that's not the value you provide, and if it's just a set of documents, so from Kreston Menon Consulting's perspective, we don't stick to this is within scope, this is outside scope. When we engage with a client, we engage for a time period where we understand their environment. We understand that we need to be flexible. We can't go and say this is within scope, this is outside scope. We need to be flexible to understand what is a priority and then help them fix things according to that priority.
Even I was talking to one of your clients, and one feedback they said is, though we were looking at Kreston Menon Consulting's cybersecurity team as a technology partner, they eventually became our business partner. So how do you actually bring this magic, understanding the business and giving value to the business when you are talking and doing technology?
See, that's why I said, because we are part of financial firm, okay, we don't look at technology as technology alone. Like a technology vendor may look at what is the merit of their platform or how their platform fits into the system.
They try to push their product.
The product or a platform, or let's say even a managed service provider. They're only looking at that.
Yeah.
But when we look at it from, okay, what is important to the board, right? What is important to the C-level people, how do you explain this to, let's say, a CISO, or how can the CISO take this to the CFO, or how does CEO look at the whole scenario? So when we start talking in business terms, it's something that they understand, and they don't look at us anymore as just a service provider, but it really becomes a partnership. And then sometimes we are not even engaged with them, but then we still work with them, or we align with them, where we can work together on, let's say, a third project or a third initiative, which is neither at their end nor at our end, but something that we can bring our synergies together with.
So it's not the billing that you're looking at, but a long-term partnership or a collaboration,
Yes.
which helps the organization also.
So we look at vision and mission of the organization as well before going to the
Great.
organization. So this supports what.
So it was great talking to you both, and Sangeetha, with decades. No, I'm not trying to make you look too old, but I know you have worked with a lot of public sector entities in the region. What is your final takeaway for the listeners?
When we talk about security is not what you know, but it is what you learn, what you do, and what you keep as a practice.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Sangeetha, and thank you, Taha, for this insightful conversation. We had a great talk, actually, and I'm sure our viewers will also agree with it. We'll be back with more interesting topics in the days to come. Till then, see you guys.